friends, and welcome to another episode of Booked, a place to explore the realms of creativity. Before you continue to listen to this episode, please do check out the content warnings in the description. Today's guest is the lovely Shauna Marie O'Toole. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all mine, honestly. I've been excited about this episode for weeks. Since the first time we had a conversation, I thought Shauna's going to give me a really good episode. So no pressure, but you're hilarious and very entertaining to talk to. So I'm just jazzed. So just to give the listeners a bit of a lowdown as to what to expect from you as a writer. So you have a mixture of autobiographical works and also fiction. Would you be able to give us a sort of an overview of what readers can find?
My autobiography, You Can't Shave in the Minimart Bathroom, is my transition diary.
Mm-hmm.
But set up so anyone could actually take the book, open it midway, and within a couple pages have a self-contained story. It has good things. It also has bad things. Being trans is probably one of the roughest gigs around.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but at the same time, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
My science fiction, I tried to keep the science somewhat possible.
Okay.
I root the science fiction in science, but I don't go geeky, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
When I wrote Exodus, this is long before The Martian ever came out. I had 2 astronauts stranded on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
With an incredible discovery. Every attempt to bring them home was being sabotaged on Earth or in Earth orbit. And so they had to cobble together their own supply still in orbit and make their own way back, including using a solar sail. Solar sail is ultra thin mylar that captures the solar wind, the particles that come off the sail, and use it for propulsion, much like the old clipper ships did, going back and forth across the oceans. And from there, I never meant to write a series, but it turned out to be an entire series. And it was a blast. And the latest book, Pathfinder, sort of summarizes a lot of that, but I'm starting to think there's a sequel even to Pathfinder.
Oh, are the characters coming back to you?
Yes. They've been on vacation, lounging in Tahiti or wherever, and come back and ready to get back to work.
That's excellent. So I know that in your sort of background and your history, you were previously an earth science teacher. So does that experience come into play with your science elements of your fiction?
Yes. I'm an earth scientist. I was an industrial technician, scientist, and engineer. So that covers 30 years worth of my life right there. I'm a science geek. Student of everything, master of none, but better than anyone who's master of one. That is how the whole phrase goes.
Oh, I'd never heard the whole thing from back to front before.
Yes,
okay.
Is the whole phrase.
Today I learned.
When you get to be 3.7 billion years old, it's what I used to tell my students. So the sciences I learned and try to keep up on, I use in my books. You'll find a lot of aviation in there too, because I'm a pilot.
You've got such a rich history, honestly. It's fascinating. Every time I listen to you or I read a little something about you, I think, she's done this as well? That's amazing. That's incredible.
Well, I'll just keep busy.
Yeah, no kidding. reading a majority of You Can't Shave in a Minimart Bathroom, which I'm sure we're going to talk about at length shortly, I was really pleased to see someone being so vulnerable. Not pleased in a weird way, but I love seeing people's vulnerabilities and their human experiences and being like, this is what I've gone through, and seeing a lot of stuff that I've gone through mirrored in it that I didn't expect. You insert a lot of humor, but also you're quite tender with the difficult and challenging parts of your life. And as a reader, I just appreciate that you've put yourself out there, because I know it's not easy. It's not easy experiencing it. It's certainly not easy being vulnerable enough to share it with people. So, I mean, what was that experience like for you writing it? Was it cathartic or?
It really was.
Mm.
I I was closeted for, you know, 40 years. I knew I was at age 5, but I didn't start coming out until I was 45. After um, a Halloween party that just went too well, shall we say?
I've heard that more than once. I think
Yes,
that's the doorway for a lot of
it,
people,
it,
isn't it?
it, it truly is.
Mm.
Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde had it. Hyde win. One.
So, did you begin writing this as like a diary, or were you like, right, I'm going to put everything down on paper? Did it span across a long period of time?
It started as my diary,
Mm.
and that started November 1, 2003.
Wow. Okay.
And that's when I knew I needed somewhere safe to talk.
Mm.
And the computer program was a safe place because I kept the program off the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So if the computer was found and opened, you couldn't see
Mm.
it.
I see. Okay.
It was on a floppy disk long before we had thumb drives and everything else.
Oh, I loved a floppy disk.
Uh, and I tried to write a couple times a week, especially when something happened. I would talk about what that was.
Mhm.
Probably the one overall comment that I've received from the book has been from other trans people who said, mine was the first story that gave them hope that they could transition and be happy.
That's gonna make me cry. That's really nice. That's so
We're
nice.
talking power.
Oh.
And,
Am I gonna cry? I might. Okay, carry on.
and, you know, those thoughts saved me when I was in my darkest point. So I am a survivor, did not jump.
I'm so glad.
You
Mm.
know, by this point, I had spoken to in front of a couple thousand people, sharing my story, receiving those comments.
Mm.
And I thought, what would happen to all of them if my story ended here?
Mm.
And I caught myself as I was falling off the ledge, pulled myself back up, and here I am.
I am so glad you're still here.
So am I. So am I.
That's so powerful, and it just goes to show how important it is to, when you are in a space that you can safely share your vulnerabilities and your struggles, how much of an impact it can have even on one person, let alone multiple people. So, I mean, I'm the fact that this has probably saved a lot of people, and yourself, is so like it's so good as well. It's so enjoyable to read. Obviously, some of it is incredibly challenging, and you're reading it and you think, can't believe she came back from that. But it does inspire hope, because you're still here and we're talking about it. So
That's it.
yeah, that's incredible. Honestly, I'm still a little bit emotional, actually. I didn't think you were going to get me like that today.
You know, but that's okay. Emotions are good because they allow us to express feelings that go beyond words,
Yeah.
just like music.
Writing's incredibly powerful.
It is.
And I'm really glad that it's something that you've been able to use as a tool. Because that's what I mean. A lot of writers that I've spoken to do use it as a tool, and it's a way of expressing themselves or to live a life that they wish that they could lead, or whether it's fiction or autobiographical or whatever it is. Yeah, it's fascinating to speak to all these humans and hear about how writing has helped them in some way or another, and yours seems to have helped you a huge amount. Um, so within the latest edition, you also include the Declaration of Transgender Independence, or
Yeah.
did I almost get the name right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Um, and there's a story around that as well.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear it.
So it goes like this. My best stories always start, say it with me, it goes like this. Thank you. I love
it
an interactive audience.
I was like clinging onto your words, but I wasn't really processing them properly. I'm sorry. But yes, I did notice that.
So I put it out there. Um,
Mhm,
Basically, it's a demand that we be treated with the same rights,
mhm,
privileges, and respects that any other human deserves.
mhm.
And in the LGBTQ library in the city of Rochester is a copy of that signed by me and many others, including politicians who support.
Wow.
Um, and so it was there, and I suddenly got this email
Mhm.
from a reporter with AP News.
Okay.
They were the Associated Press was doing a story on how the Declaration of Independence has inspired activists.
Hmm.
And so we talked about it there. I sent a copy of it to her digitally,
Mhm.
and wrote this, she wrote the story. I think it had 5 or 6 different activists. Um, Mine was the lead story of it,
Wow.
and it came out, and I started following it as it went across. It started in California,
Mhm.
Texas, Missouri, New York, London, Paris, Munich, Milan,
Wow.
all the way to Taipei.
No kidding. That's
Okay.
amazing.
It just one of these,
Wow.
wow, how did this happen?
That's incredible. What the
So I
heck?
would never make it as a spy because I am now known around the world.
Oh shoot. How have a lot of conversations come out of that?
A few.
Mhm.
A number of people just sort of said, yeah, yeah, yeah. I did one
Mm.
better. I don't think so, but
It's a weird flex. Just people trying to do something nice.
yes, yes. The original declaration is actually a declaration of war.
Mhm.
And this was a declaration of political war,
Mm.
which right now, literally as we speak, is
Mhm.
being debated in the Supreme Court of the United States, whether or not we have the same rights and protections as any other citizen.
I can't believe in 2024 that human beings need to fight for basic rights. I can't get my head around it, honestly.
Everything, every privilege I had, save race,
Mhm.
went down the dumpster when I transitioned.
I remember reading about that in your book, and I hadn't considered that being a thing, honestly. But you're so right. It just all of a sudden takes away all of that for you because you're put into a category that people are confused about and therefore confused as bad, and I don't want to understand that this is just a human being trying to exist in the way that they're the most happy and
Yeah,
most comfortable. Blows my mind.
I became the other. August 22nd, 2008 at 6:22 in the morning.
That's
It's sunrise. What better time to start a new life than at sunrise? So that's
That's
my
very
rebaking.
true. Very poetic. I love it. That gave me goosebumps, by the way. um, but yeah, I think it's it's so important that when you believe in something that you just go full force with it and that you do your best to make a better sort of future for other people so that they don't have to go through the same crap that you went through, basically. I know that you are an activist and that you also are involved in a lot of different organisations and a lot of charities as well. Would you be comfortable talking to me about sort of the most poignant things you're involved in?
Certainly. Um, let's start with the Civil Air Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
Civil Air Patrol is a civilian auxiliary of the United States Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
I am deputy commander of my squadron, deputy group commander,
Wow.
and in that role as deputy group commander, my focus is solely on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
I belong to uh, the wing wide diversity committee.
Mm-hmm.
So I work across the state. I present information to at conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Um, ready to talk with anyone on this.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I love being back in Civil Air Patrol. I left initially because at the time
Mm-hmm.
I would not have been allowed to work with cadets. Cadets are young adults 12 to 21.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the diverse laws
Mm-hmm.
about trans people across the United States, I could remain in, but I loved working with kids.
Cool.
Because of working with kids in the Civil Air Patrol, I went into teaching.
Oh, really? Wow.
I was a character development instructor and had some really great discussions. So we talk about
Mm-hmm.
things that go on our four core values of integrity first, respect, excellence, and volunteer service.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in that, we've talked not only about those values, but the programs given to us by the Chaplain Corps
Mm-hmm.
included uh, teen suicide, substance abuse,
Mm-hmm.
um, rape, assault, battery,
Mm-hmm.
um, pregnancy. Uh, object of the game is simple. If you talk about these things ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
when we have to shoot from the hip, you will have already thought it through, and odds are you're going to make a better decision.
Mm. So true.
So, several years ago, uh, I missed the Civil Air Patrol deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was financially able, I went to my former home squadron, talked with the squadron commander, and found out the regs had changed, and I was
Mm-hmm.
welcomed. Had a great discussion with a
Oh,
gentleman
wow.
who brought me up to speed on it, who was also trans.
Wow. Progression. We love it.
Yes. Um, and at the time, there was something like, oh, what, maybe a dozen or two openly out trans people in all Civil Air Patrol, 60,000 members.
Wow.
I mean, the odds of anyone running into one of us in general is a long shot.
Yeah.
The odds of me running into someone from it, there are 100% certainty. Of course I am. And in the process, being openly out has allowed several of the cadets and senior members
Mhm.
to start living authentically themselves.
Oh, that's so nice.
I've had one cadet tell me, my pronouns are they, them, but please don't use them around my parents. So I said,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Um, so just my presence makes a statement.
Mhm.
Uh, a group of us have started a what will become a legitimate 501c3 nonprofit called the We Exist Coalition of the Finger Lakes. We Exist FLX. Uh, right now we're in Seneca Falls, which is
Mhm.
about a half hour down the road. It's the home of the women's rights movement.
Mhm.
Uh, Member of the board there is also trans. Uh, First Presbyterian Church has given us access
Mhm.
because this particular church is, I don't want to say is a renegade, but is says everyone is human and needs to be
Because they
treated the
are.
same way. I know, indeed.
It
So
shouldn't be such a novel concept to
you would
just be
think.
kind. Yeah, I mean, probably living in a fairyland, hoping that everyone will believe that. But anyway, so you were saying.
It's okay. I used to live in that fairyland too. I really did. Uh, so right now it's a drop in. We're trying to get events organized.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm pulling a group of people together, a group of other organizations,
Mhm.
churches, to try and get people who need to leave ultra conservative states
Mhm.
to blue states into freedom. Well, to be safe.
Which is all the more important now since the election.
Yes, actually,
Yeah.
it didn't start until after the election. My board of directors and I, we discussed we were just going to have special meeting
Mhm.
Friday after the election.
Mhm.
We had a couple days of process
Mhm.
and starting to get churches, and they're reaching out to other like denominations, other like
Mhm.
churches in their denomination to provide safe homes as people make their way from Texas to New York, Texas to Colorado or California to
Mhm.
Washington. It's scary to think that the majority of states I don't dare visit.
Which is awful. It's just it makes me so angry and so very sad that people can't move around a country freely for fear of their life being at risk, for simply existing as a happy, comfortable person in their own skin. It makes me, it's so mad. It makes me so mad.
Places like Odessa, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
the city council passed with a resolution 5-2,
Mm-hmm.
putting a $10,000 bounty on the head of any trans person using the public restroom of their gender as opposed to birth sex. So if you were to see me going into the women's room in Odessa, Texas, public restroom, and you called the cops, they would arrest me and they would give you $10,000 for finding me.
Excuse my French, fucking disgusting.
Yes,
That
it
is
is. Yes,
disgusting.
it is.
The I don't really feel like I have a place to talk about the bathroom debate, but I will give my opinion if you don't mind.
By all
Um,
means.
Nobody's shitting in the stall with me, so it doesn't matter. Like I don't get it. I don't get it.
Oh,
Like the
yeah.
thing that people are fearing isn't trans women. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm not worried about you. You go into the same bathroom as me. Anybody can go into the same bathroom as me. Really, just don't come and sit on the toilet with me and let me lock the door behind myself. It's fine. Like it doesn't. We're all just going in there to do our business and leave.
The
It's just
only thing I
bonkers.
ask, wash your hands afterwards.
Oh, of course, yes.
That's important. That's important.
Do my business, wash my hands, then leave. But still.
Um, but yeah, I mean, cisgender women are safer with us than with anyone else in the bathroom.
Hmm.
I mean, do you really think a women's room sign is going to stop a rapist?
Right? It happens in people's own homes. It happened to me in my own home. Like not this home. I have a good life now, but you know, I mean, like it's not happening to people in the way that the sensationalists and bigots are telling you. I can tell you
Oh
that for
no.
free. You know, this isn't always going to be a political show, but I think it's important with what we're talking about to acknowledge how dangerous it is at the moment.
I was invited by the local Democratic committee to come join them and watch results come in. So I did that. Um, Met with several members of the committee, some who remembered me from my run in 2020.
Hmm.
I told you, right? I ran for office.
Yes, and I also looked into it. I'd love to talk about it if you're interested.
Absolutely. And I was looking and saw that there was no one running opposed to the Republican incumbent in one of the seats that was up for election. I was going, why? Because no one wanted to run. I told her, now keep in mind, the mouth had taken control before the brain could get there. You just sit back. I have this. No, wait, we got to chat this over. No, it's okay. And the mouth immediately said, well, if you still don't find anyone to run against them, I will, reach out to me and I just may be your girl.
Mhm.
I told my wife, and she goes, "Of course you did." And about that sort of attitude, not the, of course you did, but
Like, oh, that's very typical. Yeah.
of course you did. Now, the first time I ran, which was 2020,
Mhm.
we had been married for a month, not even a month.
That was a risky move.
Oh yes, oh yes. So we've been married for a month, and it was the end of December. We
Mhm.
got married December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day.
Mhm.
I wanted something I knew I could remember.
Okay.
I have a memory like a steel sieve. Things go right in and right out, and it has ANSI number one holes, about 2.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters, which
You and I are so similar.
which is an
I
inch by
was
1 inch, by the way, for those who don't know metric. I go both ways, but it has a different meaning for me. So, so I had a call saying no one wanted to run against the incumbent
Mhm.
and wanted to know if I was interested. And I said, "Give me a few minutes."
Mhm.
So my wife and I, we talked about it and called back within an hour
Wow.
and said, we're in.
Amazing.
So it was, I think it was a good entry level position.
Mhm.
It was for the 54th New York State Senate, which covered 6 counties.
Wow.
Uh, and and COVID hit. You couldn't do anything in terms of rallies or
Mhm.
fundraisers or much of anything. I did the entire campaign basically out of pocket
Mm.
for less than $1,500.
Wow.
And I still pulled in 51,782 votes.
I saw that. I was absolutely blown away and so impressed. I don't even know 5 people that would vote for me. Let alone 50 odd thousand.
It was, yeah, so it was 35.3% of the vote.
Mhm.
And the New York State Senate Republican Committee, which funds Senate Republicans or people who are
Mhm.
running for those seats, um, put out this fear mongering postcard of things I
Mhm.
was going to do. Because the only way for me to
Ooh.
campaign is by video.
Yeah,
And so they took a snippet from my video of a really ugly shot of yours truly.
that's mean.
Oh, it's politics. There's nothing
Yeah.
fair about politics. And it said all these lies and everything else like that and fear mongering. And so I got a copy of the postcard.
Mhm.
A friend of mine gave to me. And I made a video and I mocked them. You wouldn't believe what they gave. Let me show you what they said. And I showed them the postcard. This is what they're sending people. No, this is all garbage. Let me tell you what I really stand for.
Mhm.
But they were afraid because the
Mhm.
incumbent had 66.7% of the vote.
That's
And that
wild.
wasn't enough for them.
Mm.
I mean, think about it. If I had hit 51%,
Mhm.
which would be another 20,000 votes,
Mhm.
they would have lost a seat.
You were so close.
I actually was. When you look at it that way.
You were incredibly close.
So I might be running again. Don't know. Because by the time 26 comes around, I will be 69.
No shit. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear. I didn't check if you were okay if I swore.
Oh,
That's crazy.
I
You don't look 69.
swear like enough where I'd make a satyr blush with shame. Don't worry about it. Uh, yeah, I'm going to be 67 at the end of the month.
It must be all that water you drink because your skin is flawless, honestly.
Well, I take enough estradiol on a daily basis to choke a small Clydesdale.
That was funny.
Now, you have to understand, when I first started this and I started HRT, hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
Because of my age then, at 50, the doctor didn't want me to go on to the little blue pills because the risk of blood clots and heart attack and stroke and everything else, which I totally understand. So
yeah, of course.
And liver damage. Taking the pills is like taking a ball-peen hammer to your liver going.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so it does damage. It's not a case of if, it's a case of how much. So doctor put me on birth control patches.
Really? I didn't know that was the thing.
Oh, yes. For, I don't know how common it is now, but yeah, so no pill, you would wear the patch and it would change your estradiol level, so your estrogen level in your body, so you could not ovulate.
I've got PCOS, so like my hormones are not right anyway. So I'm like, I've taken things like progesterone and things like that, but they always mess me up. So every time it's suggested to me, I say no, thank you. But I'd rather just not have periods. Anyway, you continue. Sorry.
So taking under doctor's orders in a week what other women took in a month.
Because why?
To get enough estrogen into my body to shut down all the male systems and to start any feminization. So, and with the medicine was numerical data, which showed this is what it does. This is a 24-year-old woman, this 24-year-old woman on the patches. So I said, well, fine, I can do the math. And so I worked it on out. It worked out where my blood estrogen level averaged in a 7-day period 450% that of a 25-year-old woman, and would cycle from 600% down to 300% weekly.
How did that affect you emotionally?
A leaf would fall and I would burst into tears.
Oh, I feel you.
Absolute hell.
Yeah, no kidding.
And there were a few times when the pharmacy did not receive my prescription. And my blood estrogen level fell to 0.
What a shock for your body.
I did not have the cramps. I did not have the bleeding. But the emotion cycles and the absolute drain when you go out of, when your estrogen level drops, I understand this all too well. And it is an unmitigated hell.
Right? It's terrible. Nobody really wants like those parts of being a woman anyway.
Yeah.
They suck.
My logic was ripped away from me, and I had to go through puberty again.
Wow.
Puberty 2.0. Now, when you're first time you go through puberty, you do something stupid, and people say, You're 14, you're 15. You should know better than this. But, you dumb kids, slap. Go to your room and think about what you did. You can't do that when you're 50.
No, that's not fair. You
It
should get a
isn't
free
fair, but it's
pass.
the reality of it all. You can't do anything when you're 50. You can't get away with diddly squat.
So how long did it take you to get to a point where that kind of leveled out and you could sort of do you take like just a I'm sorry if this is too personal.
Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. I want anyone who is trans, who is hearing this, keep in mind I'm talking about my experiences and not giving medical advice. It's important to say that. But I'm very open about it there. I am on 8 milligrams of estradiol daily.
And that's just going to stay standard for
That will stay standard until I say stop, which is not going to happen. I realize the medical risks. I accept them. It's part of the gig. And, and having had a taste of menopause when my estrogen level went to 0, I'm going to stay away from the hot flashes and things like that and just stay on the estrogen.
I'm not looking forward to that.
And my attorney has my healthcare proxy requests that have been notarized. So it's there, just like my final requests are notarized and with my attorney, which is basically going to have hot and cold running alcohol, soft drinks for people who are going to drive everyone else home, and live Irish music, and the microphone for people to get up and tell dirty stories about me.
That's epic. Can I come?
My 50th birthday was very much like this, and my brother commented on it that, what is this, a dry run for your funeral? I said, yeah, and I got to be here and enjoy it.
That sounds like a blast. Can I get an invite?
You're on. You are welcome.
Yes. Oh gosh, you're such a laugh, honestly.
But having this laugh helps with the writing. Having this laugh helps with the activism. It helps make it positive. So circling around back to where we were, the humor keeps me some semblance of sane. And it's important to me. It's important to everyone else too, because when everyone is angry or upset or hurt, having someone who is able to find calm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the humor does for me. It helps me find my calm, my center. It helps me help others.
Humor is one of my favorite things about being a human being. I probably use it inappropriately in the sense of I don't think I've ever not laughed at a funeral. And anytime that I feel any kind of like negative emotion or if I'm struggling to process something, I immediately make a joke about it because then the way I use it is that I try and put the pressure off of other people to be somber around me because I don't want people to be creep around me and think, oh, I've got a tiptoe. I'd rather we were just like, okay, let's just joke about it because there's no point, and there's so much power in finding humor in trauma and difficult situations and difficult times in your life. Because what else are you supposed to do? Just wallow in misery forever? There's no point. There's no point. There's no healing in that.
I agree, and the humor can make a difficult subject that much more approachable. Mm-hmm. That's why I use humor when I'm on a speaking gig. I use a lot of it because it breaks the ice. Suddenly I become approachable. Mm-hmm. And I don't talk about transitioning, really talk about being authentic. Talk about being authentic. That is something that almost everyone can relate to. Your authentic self. For me, it's this. For you, it's doing the podcasts, helping writers to get out there, that's part of your authentic self. And when you find the right language, find the right words, it's amazing what you can get done.
I totally agree. Because at the end of the day, and I said this in another podcast episode, is that we're all just humans just trying to make it through and trying to be as happy as we possibly can. And I know that there are areas of the world where people can't even get the basic necessities, let alone be true to themselves and live comfortably and happy. But that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to just get by, and there are a handful of people that are willing to shit on other people to get higher than just getting by. But the majority of humans on this planet all have a very, very similar goal of existence in peace. So I think it's incredibly powerful to be able to read your story and hear about your story, and I can so see so many elements of it that really speak to me and how I've sort of tried to figure myself out as well. Because we all go through growing pains that just it's a lot harder for some people because of the way society stops that from being accessible and safe.
Yes.
That's kind of the gist of what I get from it anyway. With your fiction work, so with it being predominantly science fiction, but having it kind of rooted in real science, do you also insert humor and sort of life lessons within that fictional world?
Not so much humor.
Okay.
But it tends to mirror a lot of what's happening in the world today, which was never intended, but it just does. When I wrote New Frontiers, came down to international stress, where we came to within a hair's breadth of nuclear war, the United States and Russia against the People's Republic of China. And it was an Iraqi Muslim woman who saved the world. And in her last moment before sacrificing herself, she recited a prayer that she knew as a little girl. So I didn't do it in Arabic, but I did have an English translation.
Wow.
And that was important to me. I mean, here in the United States, people from the Middle East are so looked down on. And my little way of putting a positive spin on it. I ended up creating a whole family in my fiction. In the mission, I suddenly introduced father, mother, sister with the book series, CERES. I have a lot more LGBTQ characters because I became comfortable writing them.
Okay.
In New Frontiers, I introduced a lesbian couple, which was good. I had to get my feet wet somehow in that. Ceres and Tara both had LGBTQ characters in it. In Ceres, I also had a transition. AI system on board ship perceives itself as human, as human female. And it's about acceptance, it's about rejection. My main characters, who have been the main characters through almost all my stories, act like Mama Bear and Papa Bear, protecting Sally. And Sally's the name of the computer system. It was a homage to the HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay.
And HAL's sister computer is named Sally. And she perceives herself as brown skinned Latina.
Hmm.
And eventually she's able to project a hologram showing that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's a whole transition story
Mm-hmm.
in there. Um, and in Tara, it comes down to she is willing to risk her life and existence
Mm-hmm.
to save others. And how her adopted father, my main character, stays behind to rescue her.
Hmm. That's nice. Have you used much of your own experiences in your characters, or do you try and sort of
Yeah,
detach from that?
a bit of both. I experiences that I've had of I'll rework somehow,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be in there. Of Pathfinder, which is the sequel to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Of I definitely used a lot of personal experiences there in terms of dealing with the public.
Mm-hmm.
Of I mean, when I was early in my transition, um, I was living in the city of Rochester, riding the bus, and I would hear the comments behind me. If my partner was riding with me, we'd get horribly upset, almost wanting to jump out of the chair.
Yeah.
I just kept Rocky calm, quiet. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what you're saying? Yes, I know. I hear every word. Um, Walking out the door as a trans person is very much uh, set condition one throughout the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in my head, it needs to be on a swivel. I've been followed once, was not
Oh.
assaulted, but I was in the middle of a Sunday afternoon,
In the
broad
daytime?
daytime, and I could hear the person behind me.
Mm-hmm.
I just by the sound, I knew where he was.
Mm.
I knew his movement. I knew how far away he was. I could feel myself limbering up my shoulders a little.
Mm.
Looked out into the traffic for a bus, not because I was going to catch it in case I needed to do something drastic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was told by a martial artist if you're going to fight, you have to fight to kill. If both of us were crossing the street
Mm-hmm.
or walking down the street, and someone were to jump out and come after us, they could do horrible things to you, and
Mm-hmm.
I hope it never happens again. And me, they'll kill.
Mm.
Several years ago, black trans women walking down through Harlem
Mm-hmm.
with her boyfriend came out as trans. He called to his friends right there, and they beat her to death, physically beat her to death on the steps of a police precinct. No one
That
came
is
out. No one came out to help.
that's fucking atrocious. Oh my god.
Uh, Elon Nettles, I believe, is
Mm-hmm.
the name. Um, Another woman was being catcalled and harassed by a group of guys. She just ignored, kept walking, went into a parking garage to get her car.
Mm-hmm.
They showed up. She sent two of them to the hospital with serious injuries, and the
Mm.
other two went for their lives.
Wow.
We fight to win.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing now with We Exist. We are fighting to win. No surrender, no retreat. The line is here.
Mm.
We fight.
I again, I know that we'll talk about it separately, but if there's anything that I can do to help with anything, please let me know. So before we start sort of closing the episode, so we've got quite a lot of content, which is great. And we've mostly talked about you as a person, which is fantastic. We've talked a little bit about your autobiographical stuff and your science fiction as well. Before we start to sort of wind down, is there anything that you wanted to have talked about that we haven't yet? Because I don't want to cut it off and have you think, oh, I wish I'd have said that.
Nothing is coming to mind this very second.
Okay.
We took a very broad paintbrush to my life, and
Mm-hmm.
we went from here to there and everywhere, and I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
You will find me in my writing, and my writing in me. I keep going back to several books to re-energize me,
Mm-hmm.
all by Robert Heinlein.
Okay.
Um, The Day After Tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
originally published as The Sixth Column. Starship Trooper, please don't pay any attention to that awful movie. The book is so much better. Oh, that movie was a farce. And
Oh, my husband keeps trying to get me to watch it.
read the book.
Okay, I'll read the book.
Because if you watch the movie, it is a farce.
Oh.
Just a farce.
Okay.
The only thing between the movie and the book is that they have some of the same names, and that's it.
Oh, okay. So it's like bastardized version.
Bastardized is an understatement. It's been manipulated, scrunched together, pounded on in to make whatever they want to do. Sorry, wrong voice.
It's okay. It worked. It's fine.
Come out next. I used to do that in my classroom. Sometimes it was Julia Child. Sometimes it was back in glory day, Union Soviet Socialist Republic. I had someone who emigrated from Ukraine long ago said, my Russian accent is not that bad.
Another feather in the cap.
I know. Back in Soviet Union, we sent first astronaut into space, first cosmonaut into space. Eventually, we bring back alive.
Such a hoot. So before we depart for the day, I just wondered if you could tell our listeners where they could find you and your work.
You can find my books at Amazon.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can also get them at Lulu.com for a reduced price.
Mm-hmm.
My books are self-published, so they're not going to go away. Right now, you can find me at Shauna_We Exist on Twitter. Yes, it is Twitter. It is not X. It is Twitter.
I agree. I'm not disputing that.
And SM O'Toole at Blue Sky. And I'm working my way to moving all the way over to Blue Sky because the moderators actually know what they're doing. When people are banned, they're banned for life instead of, that's long enough.
Oh, really? Oh, that's good to know.
But right now I'm staying on because of connections here with you and other writers.
Mm-hmm.
I have another one that's Not Ready for Food. I actually started to get myself cooking properly. It was Not Ready for Food TV, and I was starting YouTube videos. I would shoot and edit myself how to do simple things.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, this girl earned her figure the honest way. I cooked and ate my way to it.
Good for you, girl. I love that.
I am in great shape. Round is a shape, so I'm in great
I genuinely appreciate you being on today. Thank you so much for being open and honest. And I know that you said that you're an open book, and you very much are the openest of books. And I'm hoping that at least one person can listen to this episode and relates to you in some way, or that sees some comfort in the fact that you're here talking right now. So yeah, I just want to say thank you so much.
If there is a trans person non-binary person or an LGBTQ person who simply wants to reach out to me, you can reach out to Shauna Marie O'Toole at weexistflx.org.
I'll put that in the description of the episode as well.
Okay.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for being on today.